Hi, Aries Sun and Rising. Welcome to your October 2022 Astro Update. It's Reina here. Well, you're going to have a full moon in your sign, Aries. So that is one of the highlights of October. Obviously, or maybe it's not obvious to you, but it's also eclipse season. And as I record this in September, there may be things that are starting to happen as early as then. I think, especially in the second half, as I'm recording this on the 18th of September, and I think that towards the end of the month, around the equinox and beyond, that might be a period of great change. But then, yes, there is a full moon in your sign. But let me start at the beginning. So the month begins with Mercury turning direct on the 2nd of October. Thank God. I'm counting the days. Now, Mercury began in your seventh house when it went retrograde. It began its retrograde in the seventh house, which is connected to uh, committed partnerships. It's connected also to legal matters. And now it is going back, and then it went back into the sixth house of work on, I don't know, I can't remember what date it was. But this is because this is about service to others, your workplace, there may be a connection there. If you had some matter that needed mediation, that would have been the seventh house. And maybe there's negotiation that is happening, some kind of legal or mediation. To me is something that happens to avoid having it escalate to an actual lawsuit or something along those lines. So, whatever this means to you, I wouldn't know. But the bottom line, what it could be too is connected with if you have a business partner, that could be the seventh house, or if you have clients, that could be the seventh house. And sometimes um, people, want to work in a certain field, but they don't necessarily want to work in a certain setting. So, for instance, let's say you're in the the business of psychology. Maybe you're a therapist and you have your own clients, but for some reason you don't like that and you kind of want to work in that field, but in a more generalized way where you don't have to actually deal with people one on one. Maybe that feels draining to you, and so you want to get in another area in that field where you still would be able to use your qualifications. That's just an example. But yeah, so Mercury is direct, thank goodness. On the 8th, Pluto turns direct, and Pluto um, is going to turn direct at 26 degrees of Capricorn. Pluto is an outer planet, so um, the transit itself is more significant because of the house that it is transiting. For you, this is going to be the 10th house of career. So, could there be some kind of connection between that Mercury direct in the 6th, Pluto direct in the 8th? I mean, in the 10th. I was thinking on the 8th, in the 10th. Um, Maybe, because one is work, one is career. So, the 10th house can be authority figures. Aries people don't really take kindly to direction or authority figures, do you? You want to run the show. So if you find yourself in a position where you are an underling, there might, sparks might fly because you just naturally want to be in that authority position. But for other reasons, it may not materialize. Maybe Um, if you're not charming your way to the top, you don't get the, prize of being able to be in a leadership position. If you don't play, what's the term that they use if you're not a team player or something like that, or you don't have the, the diplomacy, um, you piss people off too often. Maybe that's why. But even if you are okay with being in a subordinate position, you still may have some, with this Pluto transit in the 10th, it can still give an obsession for power. And that can lead also to a fall from grace. Pluto in the 10th can lead to a fall from grace. The 10th house is your reputation. This is most likely if the individual is tempted to do something shady in order to get ahead. Because Pluto is connected to karma. And it's like if you try and do something like that, you can't expect to be able to kind of skate away without having to pay the piper. So, what it can do, I mean, I hope not, no Aries people have actually had to deal with this, but if you have, if you didn't make a mistake at some point because you wanted to be in a position of power and you were willing to do just about anything to get there, um, atone for your sins, Don't try to pretend that you didn't do what you did. Now, obviously, if it's something that could possibly get you in trouble, that might be a different story. But at least admit it to yourself and vow never to do something like that again. I think Aries people tend to be very straightforward, though. So it might be something that was not really intended to be shady. It just, you might have trusted the wrong person. But if you had been less, obsessed with success at this juncture of your life, if you'd been like more chill about it, you might have had more restraint. Let's put it that way. But anyway, Pluto is going to go into Aquarius in 2023 in March. So it's only going to be in this sector for a few more months. So while it's direct, if there has been any kind of like inner work that you have done so that you can, that's a good thing because it's really about learning lessons sometimes and growing, expansion. Um, yeah, so that's happening. On the 9th, the very next day, is that full moon in your sign, 16 degrees. What needs to leave your life? If you are less than 16 degrees of Aries, this will fall in your 12th house. And also if your rising sign is 0 to 15 degrees, or, technically whatever the seconds are or the minutes are. But I'm just going to round it off to 16 degrees. It's in the 12th house for you. And then you're going to look to that uh, lunar eclipse in Taurus on November 8th as your full moon of sorts, because it's going to fall in the first house. But for the rest of you, so maybe like half of you, it's going to be in this first house, and it's about letting go. Even if it's in your 12th house, I mean, it can be letting go of self-defeating patterns. If it's in your first house, it's more of the outward stuff. How you conduct yourself, how you, maybe in some cases, how you dress, how you um, react to other people. There's a reactivity of Aries. And sometimes, especially if it's your ascendant, it's your calling card, and people may think, wow, this person is very aggressive. And you may just be somebody who likes to cut to the chase. You may admit that you're impatient, but it's not anything against anybody else. It's not like you're saying that they're pokey, that they're too slow, but you just want to get the show on the road. And sometimes people get put off to that because they don't like to be rushed. They feel that the person is pressuring them. When I know, having Taurus rising, that I'm like that. They say Taurus hates being pushed, being rushed. And I think a lot of people do, though. So being able to learn how to, um, you know, be more aware of how you come across to others can be, very helpful. Not being as brusque, and that sort of thing. Or just your life, there might be some major change that's happening. On the 10th, Mercury goes into Libra, so Mercury goes into that seventh house. Again, this is Mercury coming back out of its shadow. It will, I don't know the exact date it's going to come out for sure, but it's going back into Libra, so it's picking up ground. But again, legal documents, communicating about legal matters may be on the agenda. On the 23rd, it's funny because that's like over 2 weeks later, we have Venus going into Scorpio, the Sun going into Scorpio, and Saturn turning direct, all on the same day. Now, those first two transits are in your 8th house. Venus into Scorpio, Sun into Scorpio. So this can be money that's coming from someone else. And again, maybe this is a legal matter. Maybe it has something to do with an inheritance or a divorce. The Sun is there as well. Saturn going direct. Saturn is in Aquarius. So Saturn has been in your 11th house. And for Aries people, you may have had to let go of some friendships because Saturn can pare things down. If a person is kind of excessive in a certain area, they may find that things are kind of narrowing, their options are narrowing, and it's not because something bad is happening, it's because Saturn does not like excess. But then Saturn went retrograde, and perhaps also, well, it's important to note too that the 11th house are hopes and wishes and gains, financial gains from your business. You may have felt like that was hampered. So see if you have your own business, see if this picks up, or even through your career. But there might have been structures you needed to create to make this happen, including your long range goals. Sometimes people, and I think Aries people tend to do this, they have these wild dreams and they may be very willing to work hard to make them come true, but they don't have a plan of action. So things tend to peter out. And Saturn is all about foundation. So if you have some long range goals, you have to plan methodically for how this is all going to manifest. So maybe that's been what you've been doing, and you may not even know that this was going on. You just happen to be doing it, and it's aligning perfectly for that. So on the 25th, we have the solar eclipse, which is a powerful new moon at 2 degrees of Scorpio. That's that 8th house. So this is very, very featured in October. Not surprising because it does become Scorpio season. So for some Aries people, and this is not just now, but it has been true, perhaps you have been starting to get into metaphysics more. I wouldn't even be surprised if, some Aries people have had a very quick spiritual awakening where everything just started to be downloaded and you were kind of online, meaning, like connected spiritually in short order, just like a typical Aries, like everything happening pretty quickly because, first of all, because Aries does tend to do things like that, but also because there have been eclipses. The South Node has been here. So it might be that this is familiar territory to you. Now, when there is familiar territory, it's not that you have to completely avoid that area of life like the plague while the South Node is transiting that area, but it's more about de-emphasizing it because you will find, even if this is something that feels new to you, that you're being introduced to, that it is, in fact, uh, your karmic past. It is familiar territory to you. So, when did Taurus go into, when did the North Node go into Taurus, and when did we have, well, I know the first eclipse in that axis between Taurus and Scorpio was a year ago, November, late November, in Taurus. And so, the North Node the North and South Nodes are tied to that. So the real area of exploration in this incarnation is more connected with the second house. Now, this is, the second house is known for money. So we can look at the eighth house as money too, but shared resources. So with a solar eclipse in that eighth house, there may be like money. I do feel like that could be money that is connected to what is going on. I don't have the ephemeris in front of me, but since the solar eclipse is at 2 degrees and Venus just went and the sun just went into in there 2 days prior, that it probably is forming a conjunction with those planets, and that can be very um, fortunate. What's the term? Auspicious. So you may benefit from other people's money in some way, and it can have a long-lasting effect. On the 28th, Jupiter goes back into Pisces, and so it's going back into that 12th house. Jupiter was in your sign, Aries, so interesting that you have a full moon in that first house, and then Jupiter leaves that house because Jupiter going back into the 12th can give you divine protection. The 12th house can be hidden enemies. And yeah, I mean, the 12th house is a spiritual house. So again, with the solar eclipse in the 8th, another water house like the 12th, then you have this. I really think that some of you guys might be definitely embarking on some kind of spiritual adventures, whether it's some kind of course of studies or whatever is taking place. Maybe even you're planning some travel that is connected to that. The new moon in the ninth house will be occurring in late November. So Neptune is it has been transiting that 12th house for 10 years. That may have been a catalyst for a lot of these changes because this is, Neptune's domain. It rules the 12th house, it rules Pisces. So it specializes in 12th house matters. It makes plus you have Chiron in your sign. So that is the wounded healer. And that makes the average Aries person, at least in theory, I haven't really discussed this with any Aries people personally. So I'm just going to put it out there. You can decide whether or not I'm full of crap. That it would make you more sensitive, and also that Neptune in the 12th, more empathic. By the way, all fire signs, I'm a Sag, get accused of being insensitive by virtue of being fire signs. So don't think I'm dissing you as an Aries. This is just par for the course if you are a fire sign. On the 29th, Mercury goes into that 8th house. So definitely, Mercury has definitely left Libra. I don't know what degree it retrograded at. I think it was a later degree. I'm not sure though. So it's, past the shadow period. And now it's in that 8th house. So that could be a course of studies that is connected to metaphysics. It could also be, and that could be also astrology and the tarot. It also can be that you are signing documents. Mercury can be documents that are dealing with other people's money, like a will. Some kind of thing. On the 30th, Mars goes retrograde. So that was one of the big pieces of news too. Mars finally goes retrograde at 25 degrees of Gemini, 30th of the month, in the 3rd house that it rules. So, if you've been fighting with family members, and this would be specifically brothers or sisters, possibly extended family members, aunts, uncles, cousins, or even neighbors, this can be the 3rd house, you may be retreating from that. And when I say fighting, it might just be that there's some bone of contention. It doesn't mean that you're just like completely at war with that person, but there's something that you may clash about. And that may actually be turned inward as this retrograde progresses, because you may feel like you have to keep the peace. Maybe one of your parents is kind of admonishing you to stop fighting with a sibling. So again, this might be some will, and you are at odds with a sibling because of it. Mars will go direct on January 12th. So you have a few months where, so I say these things so that you know that this too shall pass, and that you don't have, and also that if you're listening beforehand, you can stay above the fray. You don't have to get sucked into anything. This is letting you know that this can be a temptation. Like, let me take my example of someone who is dealing with a sibling who is perhaps, not being straight about a will, trying to get one over on everybody else. You might be outraged by it, Aries, and usually Aries people don't hold back. But what if you did things differently? What if you saw that person as hurting for some reason? Maybe they had, maybe they feel like it's their chance to have one over on other people. They feel powerless in their life. Who knows? It's not to make excuses for bad behavior, but not to get caught up in other people's bad behavior is really what I mean. And you can still do what you need to do. It's not to say you just like throw in the towel, but you just don't get caught up in any ugliness. Same thing if it's like something to do with a neighbor or something like that. Because sometimes in my experience, when I have not been as conscious as I should have been, like when I lost my cool, because I'm not really like that where I just am that much of a hothead or something. But in times when I look back on behavior and I'm not proud of how I acted, it was during times when I didn't anticipate a particular situation. And I've realized this with myself that is when I'm like caught off guard. And so that can lead to not handling things as well as you want to. When you calm down later and you kind of really look at the situation from the bigger picture perspective. So, anyway, that's what I have for you, Aries. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading from me, I do transits like, how I'm doing here, but they're tailored to your natal chart. This is a general reading, so it's going to be just based on a universal template of a chart, not for your particular chart. So, it gives you like an overview of what the themes are for the coming 12 months. It can be any 12 months, starting, with where I'm at when I do the reading. But the other thing is that I have a package with that reading is an hour long. And then I also have a natal chart interpretation, which that is your cosmic blueprint from the time you're born. And that is an important component. A lot of people like predictions, but they don't really maybe they don't have as much interest in their natal chart. Some people are the exact opposite. I think I'm more like the opposite for myself. But both of those things can give different perspectives. And so I have a double reading for a special price called the Deep Dive reading that combines both of these into two full-length readings. And I have other readings as well. The link below will take you to my ordering page and the descriptions of all of the readings. And thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Take care. Bye.